Hi, everybody. I'm H.M. Jones, author of Monochrome and now Fade to Blue, which I know many of you have been waiting for. I'm here today to do a little reading on Fade to Blue from the very first chapter and then from, I think, the third chapter after that. I'm eager for you guys to finally get Ishmael's story. If you have read Monochrome, you know that Abigail was the main character and Ishmael was her guide through Monochrome. Ishmael's story resonated with a lot of people, and I got a lot of requests to write his version of events. And what I did is I wrote his prequel so that you know more about him, where he was at in life, and why he made the decisions he made. So I'm going to read to you first from chapter 1, called A Cold Still Life. Ishmael opened and closed his mouth dumbly several times. He attempted to dredge up the perfect words that would keep the inevitable at bay a little longer. Slick sweat coated his palms and made it hard to grip his cell. He swallowed back the gritty lump forming in his throat. Katie May's voice rang insistent on the other end. "Are you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here, just trying to process it all." Ishmael forced his voice into a steady tone, quiet, without fight. His voice was the only thing he could control. The rest of his body rioted, but he was proud enough not to let her know it. A constant buzz hummed in the back of his head. It started when she began to call with, "We need to talk." It wasn't just the words, it was the way the words sounded like nails in a coffin. The buzz in his brain thrummed so loudly, his voice came out just under a yell. "I know that's what you want. I get that, but I've never lied to you, Katie May. It wouldn't be fair for me to pretend that I want kids. I don't. I can't be a father." He unbuttoned his black dress shirt with unsteady fingers. His undershirt was damp, even though the day was cold. Minutes ago he'd taken a zip-up sweater from his closet. The sweat of unexpected stress made the room feel stifling. He didn't need the jacket or the shirt he was removing. He'd not be making it to class. Katie May's answer was distant, and not just because she was miles away. Her words rang with abandon. "I'm sorry you still feel that way, Jordan. I thought it might change. I guess I was wrong." He flinched as if she'd slapped him. Calling him Jordan, his deadbeat father's name, was an intentional blow. He doubted she could ever understand what bringing up the man that bringing up the only man made him more Sorry, let me try that again. He flinched as if she'd slapped him. Calling him Jordan, his deadbeat father's name, was an intentional blow. He doubted she could understand that bringing up the man only made him more resolved to never have children. If shitty parenting was genetic, he'd screw up any offspring he had for sure. But more than hurtful, her words shattered any ray of light he thought to shed on the conversation. She was past that point. No words, no actions would change her mind. He was hearing the cold end of them. Her voice was wet with tears. "You know I want to be a mother. I'm getting too old to wait for you to grow up and out of your fears. I wanted to plan my life with you in it, but I was wrong to think you'd change. That's not something you do. You're the same today as you were when I met you, and I'm done pretending we're going to work." He wanted to remind her that she seemed to like him well enough when they met. She thought him witty and interesting. But any rebuttal he wanted to make fell apart as he fell forward, grasping for a breath. The phone slipped through his flagging grasp and tumbled to the floor with a stony thud. He could hear Katie May's voice rise in worry or anger, but the buzz was deafening. His head swam in a familiar and terrible way. His chest ached, his stomach churned. The acid of nausea stung his throat. Fear was so overwhelming, so tangible, he could taste it on the tip of his tongue. He lay huddled on the floor of his apartment, sucking down air in quick, exaggerated bursts. Katie May's goodbye and click, the dead tone of their relationship was a taunting symphony, the perfect accompaniment to his anxiety. Just breathe. You can call her later. Fix it after you breathe. Fix it when the fear is gone. But he knew it never would be gone. It had been his lifelong companion, the only one that ever stuck around. So that is the very first chapter, the introduction to Ishmael that readers get. And I think it's a fairly accurate one. Ishmael, well, I think most of you would agree, who is a very lovable character in many ways. Very kind. He thinks of other people more than I think others do. he's also extremely anxious and is used to people letting him down. And so his mistrust of others in Monochrome probably makes sense. But in this book, you get to learn more about why that mistrust occurs and who is responsible for that in his life and how he's dealt with that. I'd also like to read from you from page, I think this is 26. This is the first time Ishmael gives a memory, and the memory he chooses I think is important. He is at the bar that Abigail first gets into the outpost. At this time, though, somebody who he ends up being friends with, Tom, is the bartender. And he's giving a pink memory, which, as you know, is sort of a more playful memory. Tom took a breath. Pick one that you don't care about losing. Maybe about a person you don't like or don't know very well. That way you won't feel as bad about losing it. Ishmael wished he could voice the well of gratitude that sat heavily in his throat, but he wasn't good at emoting. Thanks for the advice. I have the perfect useless memory ready. Tom shook his head. No memory is useless. We just don't know their value until they leave us. Ishmael wanted to argue. Tom clearly didn't know anyone like Jordan. Ishmael couldn't imagine any more memories as useless as the ones his sometime father left him. They were just nice enough to give him futile hope as a naive child, and just enough to feed his bitterness as an adult. But he didn't argue with Tom, if only because he liked him. He closed his eyes and concentrated on learning to skip stones. Jordan bent down, his long blonde ponytail falling over his shoulder. Look here, son, this is the perfect stone. It's not fat like that one you just tossed in there. You don't want it fat, you want it thin and egg-like. Ishmael always liked Jordan's drawl, even when he didn't like Jordan. His words sounded tired. He didn't say that, though. Jordan would tell him not to talk like a pussy. He always did when Ishmael got too poetic. He searched the bank of the creek and found a stone that was oval and flat, just like the one Jordan showed him. It felt like silk to his fingertips. He rubbed it as he presented it to Jordan. Jordan whistled. Yeah, buddy, that one'll work. Now come on up here. Ishmael followed him to the bank, watching the blue flannel shirt pull across his father's broad shoulders. Mom always said he looked like Jordan, but he wasn't sure. He was only 10, and he doubted he'd ever be as tall and strong as Jordan. The man's arms were knotted muscles covered in blonde hair. Ishmael's own arms were soft and a little skinny. Now, you gotta use your wrists, son. It's not like throwing a baseball or football. It's more like a frisbee. Not that I encourage frisbee throwing here. That's for pussies. He winked a little, an indication that he was just playing. That's what he always said to lighten the intensity of either racist, homophobic, or sexist comments. Ishmael watched his father's shoulder blades flex as he pulled his arm back. Jordan flicked his wrist with force, and the stone skidded across the flat water, then bounced once, twice, before plopping into the water. That stone was too fat. Jordan kicked stones in the creek in embarrassment. Ishmael felt embarrassed for his dad, too. He'd been wanting his dad's sling to be as impressive as he imagined it would be. Ishmael pulled his arm back and imagined he was playing frisbee with Walt, his best friend at school. He didn't think frisbee was for pussies, but he'd never tell Jordan that. Jordan didn't like arguments, and Ishmael'd end up getting cuffed in the ear if he started one. He took a breath and flicked the rock disc. It slid across the surface before jumping like a frog, once, twice, 3 times before sinking into the creek. Yeah! He pumped his fist into the air and turned to Jordan, who was trying to hide a smile behind his hand. Beginner's luck, Junior, Jordan said, a smirk in his voice. His victory soured over those 2 consonants. J.R. I'm not a junior. My middle name is Ishmael. Yours is Curtis. The hint of smile that revealed Jordan's pride in his son faded. You gotta ruin every fucking thing with your smart-ass comments, don't you? So that's a little bit about the relationship between Jordan, who is Ishmael's father, and Ishmael, whose actual name, as you know, is Jordan, which was revealed in Monochrome. And if you haven't read Monochrome, I really encourage you to do so. You can do so before you read this one if you want to get a taste of Monochrome, or you can do so after. I have tried in this book to, I guess, recreate